Welcome back into Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, asking you to head over to youtube.com, put Locked On Sports Atlanta into your browser, find us, subscribe to the page, 1,300 strong and growing every day, man. We thank you so much for being a part of the community, growing so quickly, so thanks for being a part of it. And also, you can give me a follow on my personal Twitter page. That would be at JMCH316. Arthur Smith did an interview with Jeff Schultz of The Athletic. Now, there were some things I did not agree with in just reading some of the quotes and headlines and things like that. But I love this from head coach Arthur Smith. Quote, "This is a waste of your time and my time if you want to talk about 23. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, that a team that would try to not win football games. If you don't, there's going to be consequences. Okay? You're at the top of the draft. I got it. But you're in a very transactional phase of the NFL right now. Trades in the draft, trades for quarterbacks. It's a different landscape than when Jimmy Johnson took over the Cowboys in 1989. It was pre-free agency, the famous Herschel Walker trade. They blew it up and went 1-15, and it was a long rebuild. This is not the same NFL as today. Back then, people would have given their firstborn before they gave their picks away. People are still going off old narratives, and it's comical. Any good team knows how to rebuild every single year. Look, we've talked about this on the podcast before, that there's no thought whatsoever about tanking, getting ready for next year, trying to get another top 3 or 4 pick. And this all ties into what I've said many times. When people said, well, we don't need to draft a quarterback this year. Yeah, you do. You needed to draft a quarterback this year because they're not thinking about next year. They're not thinking about where they're going to be in the future. You can't think like that. If you're legitimately trying to be a good NFL organization, you have to build your team for the here and now today. Yes, you bring in certain guys that you hope are going to be part of the future plans. Yes, you obviously draft well, draft the best player, draft for your need and different things like that. Not taking that away from it. But you don't get so caught up in next year. Because here's the thing. If you start to get into next year, you become the Lions and the Jaguars, and you become all of those bottom-feeding teams. And you have to start finding star players, and you have to start finding guys that are difference makers out there. Because the goal is not for a team to draft in the top 5 for a decade running. That's not what the goal of the NFL is. The idea is you get to be bad one year, we move you up high in the draft, and you end up having money and you get good, and then the next really bad organization does the same thing. So I love what Coach is saying here. I love the idea. And again, I've said on this exact podcast in this show, don't get mad if they win more games than you expect. The Vegas line is, I don't know, whatever, some places 4.5, some places 5, whatever, it is. They're going to beat that. I truly believe it. I've seen people say they're going to be 1-16. They're going to be 2-15, 3-14. They're one of the worst teams. I don't think that they are. And I think Arthur Smith is the kind of coach that, winning 7 games last year with a worse roster year over year. And to be honest with you, they got very little out of their draft class last year. Very little. We can talk about Kyle Pitts and really what his impact is. And I'm not knocking Pitts. I like the pick and it's fine. But the impact that Pitts had didn't drastically change up very many games. There was one game that he changed up, the London game, no doubt about it, against the Jets. Short of that, it was a lot of empty calorie numbers, and it was only 1 touchdown. So, and there were times at the beginning of the year where he didn't even get on the field when they're in the red zone stuff. So, second round pick Richie Grant, 23.5% of the snaps. You got nothing out of Mayfield. You got the worst offensive lineman in the league in Mayfield, and Taquan Graham. People keep telling me about Taquan Graham. Guy had 6 sacks in 4 years at Texas. What the hell is he going to do in the league? If he's that good, why was he a 5th-round draft pick, right? And then Darren Hall and Drew Dahlman, a guy who doesn't even profile as well as Hennessy does. So they got next to nothing out of their draft class and still found a way to win 7 games. Now, look, part of that's the quarterback that you have and all this kind of stuff, and you are going to take a step back. But there's a reason why Arthur Smith brought in some of the players that he did. There's a reason why at some key positions, whether it was quarterback, whether it was even something simple. This is going to sound simple, but even something simple like long snapper. You You can't afford to have a bum. You can't afford to go back to the James Stone, Mike Person types of days, even at something like long snapper. So while they weren't going to sign Josh Harris, because I think they thought he was just getting older and they were ready to move on, you have to go find a guy. And he brought the guy that he coached in Tennessee for all of that, which I'm fine with. I mean, I'm good with all that. But I love the direction and I love the thoughts about what Arthur Smith is saying. You can't sit here and think that we're going to be back. You can as fans. I get that. You can be, Johnny come lately, Joe Bag of Donuts sitting on your couch and your barking lounger, stroking your Cocker Spaniel and, doing all that stuff. And, you can hope that they're going to be 2-14 or 2-15, I should say, and get a top 3 pick. The Falcons organization can't think that way. And I don't think it's not just Arthur Smith. I don't think Terry Fontenot or Arthur Blank are thinking that way. Arthur Blank's in his, mid-70s now? He's not looking for a long rebuild. He wants to win a Super Bowl. I mean, I hate to say it this way, and I'm not trying to be morbid when I say it, but Arthur Smith wants a Super Bowl before he dies. He doesn't want to be one of those owners that dies and never got a Super Bowl and has to hand it off to his kids and hope for the best and all that kind of stuff. He wants to win a Super Bowl. It's always been his goal. And that's why after the 16 Super Bowl, they put all their poker chips in. We can talk about the contracts that they gave to Julio, to Debo, to Grady, to this, to that, to Matt, everything like that, right? But they felt at that time, we have a Super Bowl winning team. We got to push, the Falcon for life thing, right? We have to push all of our poker chips in. And they went against what they had done previously up to that point, which was to be more fiscally responsible and not get too bogged down in long-term contracts and not overpay too many guys and this, that, and the other. Things that got them where they were. But they felt like they had a Super Bowl team. And Arthur Smith is trying to get this thing on the fast track pretty quickly because I don't think Arthur Blank is looking at a long rebuild. And I'm not saying Arthur Smith is, if they lose this year, he's going to have, any, concerns about his job or anything like that. It's a matter of turning the corner. Their record may not be all that great, and they may win a game or two less this year, or maybe not, but they may win a game or two less this year than they did last year. And there'll still be growth there. So I love what the coach is saying out there and in talking, with it. There's no doubt in my mind that this team is going to fight hard to compete. The Casey Haywards, there's guys that have a lot to prove. Casey Hayward, Rashaan Evans, Jermaine Ifedi, Marcus Mariota. These are all first-round picks. These aren't, fifth round, let's hope that we get something out of all of this. These are first-round picks. Evans, Ifedi, Mariota, these are all top-tier guys coming out of college that teams looked at and said, we're going to put high capital in you. And for a myriad of different reasons and things like that, hasn't worked itself out. And I thought it was important to bring Grady back. They want to have that stability there. They still want to be a good defensive team, and they don't want to let their top guys go. So, this goes back to a discussion that we had, I don't know, a few weeks, a month ago, whatever, it was. Falcons are going to look to try to win as many games as they can. This is not a season of throwing your, chips and, hey, let's just rebuild for next year. They're not thinking long-term about, how bad we're going to be this year to get ready for next year. They're going to compete like crazy and try to win as many games as they can. And I love what my coach is saying, man. He's trying to get it, and he's trying to get it now. All right, when we come back, I'm old enough to remember folks telling me about how Luka can just carry a team by himself to an NBA championship. How'd that work out last night? Talk about that next. Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.